The existing political party system, government based on parliamentary parties, is inherently inimical to reforms. Reforms can hardly succeed with the present system of government based on parliamentary parties, because it forces the parties constantly to negotiate, renegotiate the sharing of power among themselves, and to focus their energies, their time, on the question of political power. There is a Russian expression, the коалиционный кошмар, the nightmare of coalitions, which is also the nightmare of reforms. I am personally acquainted with some of the Georgian reformers who are currently working in Ukraine. They compare the Ukrainian system based on coalitions of multiple parties with President Saakashvili's system based on presidential government, which applied reforms from top down using what is essentially a presidential vertical of power. The power vertical has a bad reputation among many in former Soviet countries, but it is the only system that has proven effective. Some of the Georgian reformers, whom I know, I knew them when they were in the Georgian government, and I know them now in Kiev, are exasperated by the difficulties they encounter in the Ukrainian system based on parliamentary coalitions. In Ukraine, at least, you do have leaders at the top who have the political will, the motivation, and the skills to push reforms. You don't have such leaders, or you have very few such leaders, in the Moldovan system of political parties. In Moldova, there has been discussion on and off about changing the constitution from a parliamentary system of government to a popularly elected presidential institution, endowed with corresponding presidential powers on the basis of election by popular vote. I always believed that this was the right way for Moldova to go, and the present system, given the motivations of its leaders, given the level of education of its leaders, given the constraints on its leaders, will always act as a brake on reforms. A slowdown on reforms, or even maybe a block on reforms. Or slowdown, not a block, a slowdown on reforms. And finally, as a final remark, you know the American expression about the 500-pound gorilla in the room, meaning an unmentionable factor. And the unmentionable factor in our conversation is, of course, Mr. Plahotnюk, who has no formal, no official responsibilities, no state or political office at present, but he is by far the most powerful man in Moldova. Many people in Moldova are, in my opinion, correctly using the term state capture. This is the richest man in Moldova and the most influential politically, and still unaccountable. I have drawn an analogy between the situation in Georgia with Bidzina Ivanishvili, after Ivanishvili had left the government, and the situation in Moldova. The most powerful man in the country is at the same time the richest man in the country, wielding the main political influence, but without accountability or without official responsibility. And until this situation is cleared up in Moldova, there will be deadlock, stagnation, and popular discontent that could boil over into social troubles. And I think the name of the 500-pound gorilla should not be kept under wraps. This is the core of the problem, and it has to be addressed, not as some European diplomats did in the past, trying to hush it over for fear of Mr. Plahotniuk's influence and exercising influence in the wrong way. But this needs to be addressed head-on, not on the Moldovan level, because the Moldovan law enforcement system not only cannot handle the problem, but is part of the problem, but it needs to be addressed on the international law enforcement level. Thank you.